So our goal here is to solve for m, figure out what value m could be. So we're going to undo the math happening, and it doesn't really matter what you begin with, but there's lots of places to begin. So I'm going to just look over here, and I'm going to undo this 2m. So you can see it's 1 divided by 2m. So the opposite of division is multiplication. But the thing with multiplication is you have to use the distributive property. So we're going to do it to every piece. Just to the numerator. If it was an expression, we need to do it to the numerator and the denominator, but because it's an equation, we're good to go here. So those m's cancel out, 2 cancels out, m cancels out there, and so we're left with 3 times 2, which is 6, equals 2m plus 1, and then we'll just solve from there. So minus 1, 5 equals 2m. We divide by 2, and m equals 5 halves. Now, before you get really confident about your answer, remember, because we can't divide by 0, we always need to check our excluded values. So the excluded value here is m cannot be 0, which is not an issue, but sometimes you have extraneous solutions, so you always have to check those. So there's number 1. Number 3, so what I'm going to do is I still want to undo the undo the process to try to get x alone. But if you notice here, our denominators are a little bit more, they're harder to see what's going on. So what I'm going to do is use factoring. Because my a is 1, I can do the quick factoring, the shortcut. Remember, when your a is not 1, you got to do the long method. But I'm just going to think what multiplies to give me 4, but adds to give me negative 4. And so I know that 2 times 2 multiplies to give me 4, but to add to give me negative 4, it's going to have to be negative 2 and negative 2. Alright, so I'll use that. So now I want to clear out the denominators. So I'm going to multiply by x minus 2, x minus 2, x minus 2, x minus 2, and x minus 2, x minus 2. So this will keep the equation balanced and equal. So x minus 2 cancels out, and as you can see, those all divide out. So we're left on the right with 4 times x minus, or on the left, 4 times x minus 2 equals x minus 4 plus 3. We'll use the distributive property here. We get 4x minus 8 equals, combine like terms, x minus 1. And then I'll get my x's together and my numbers together. So 3x equals 7. I'll divide by 3. X equals 7 thirds. And then notice my excluded values are x cannot be 2. Remember, you can't divide by 0, so 2 minus 2 is 0, which 7 thirds works. It's not 2, so we're okay. Alright, and number 5. So in number 5, what we got going on here is a lot of the same denominator, so this is great. So I'm going to multiply everything by p squared, and that'll divide out, and I have 3 minus 4p squared equals 4p minus 5. And I notice it's a quadratic, so remember, to solve quadratics you have to get them equal to 0, factor, use the zero product property. So I'm going to add 4p squared to both sides and subtract 3. Now there are no like terms, well there are, but 4p squared doesn't have a like term, neither does 4p, but negative 5 minus 3 is negative 8. And I notice I can pull out a 4, a GCF of 4. And then I have to think what multiplies to give me negative 2 but adds to give me 1. Because my a is 1, I can use the shortcut. So I have 4 times p plus 2, p minus 1. And use the zero product property on each factor. And then solve. So p equals negative 2, p equals 1. And then 0 equals 4 is not a solution because it doesn't have any of those p's. Now remember, find your excluded value, which happens to be 0, so we're good on both. Remember, if your excluded value ever matches the solutions, then there's actually no solution because you can't divide by 0, and some extraneous solutions happened. Alright, so that's the first section.